I'm Sire, and this is Conversations with Sire. I'd like to give you guys a trigger warning because our topic today is sexual assault, sexual harassment, and rape. Today, my guests are my friends from the University of Michigan, where I met them. Give them your names, girls.
Okay, I'll start. My name is Deshawn.
I'm Bree.
I'm Jackie.
And I met them when they commissioned World Lit to do a fashion show at the University of Michigan for their club Bronze Elegance, right?
Yes.
Okay. And we stayed in contact. This conversation is actually long overdue because we have had different iterations of it. I was working on a project and I went to the University of Michigan again to speak with them about sexual assault and rape. And then I did a project with them where they came to me in New York and we did it again. Neither of those projects actually completed themselves and were published, but today that stopped. Recently, there was a Twitter account that exposed rapists from the University of Michigan specifically, as well as Detroit. How did you guys stumble upon that account? I'll start with you, Bree.
Well, I ended up actually finding the account. I was kind of late to the party. I recall it was like a weekday. It was like a Thursday, the day I had stumbled across the account, but everything had kind of popped off like the night before. And I was actually working and I hopped on Twitter and saw some mutual friends kind of just like going at it. Like they were talking about sexual assault and they were referring to another fellow Michigan student who had tweeted about a member of a certain fraternity sexually assaulting her. This would not be the first time a member of said fraternity has been accused of such allegations. And then I put two and two together and realized, oh, that's why everyone is like talking about sexual assault, because someone got sexually assaulted and it's time to like have the conversation. So the conversation was still very much like full in swing by the time I kind of jumped into the discourse that was happening on Twitter, but it had been going since like the night before. But yes, I have since named the day of reckoning, because it was a day of reckoning. People who needed to be called out were being called out. People who were sliding for years were being addressed, or their friends were, or people who were defending them were. And yeah, it was a lot.
So Jackie, you were the reckoning.
I was the reckoning.
So can you talk about how you stumbled upon the account and what made you decide to release names and situations of people?
Yes. Whew, what a day. I definitely agree. I also call that day June 3rd. Was it June 3rd? June 3rd, Wednesday, the day of reckoning. Shout out to the Geminis. So I actually, that conversation had actually started, I believe, the night before via the hashtag that went viral, why I didn't report. And I noticed that hashtag had went viral amongst the UMich women that I had followed, because there was like a previous, like, not necessarily a hashtag, but women were kind of making like subliminal messages, like I was 10, I was 11, I was 12. And I started noticing that women were quoting each other. And I then realized what it was about. They were saying the ages in which they were either molested, sexually assaulted, raped by people in their lives. And so after seeing someone that I was really, really close to and had actually shared a story with me about something that they, when they were victimized in college by a member of another fraternity at a certain age, I got triggered and I thus shared my story. And so that's kind of, I think, where the conversation started amongst our community. And then the very next day, or actually the night before, me and a couple other people had made a comment like, and honestly, while we're talking, a lot of these incidents happen in college, and some of y'all favorite, fraternity members were the culprits, but we're not going to say any names. Well, honey, I didn't have to say any names. So the very next day, it was two being tweeted, and I knew both of them, and I was like, well, this has hit the fan. I'm not exactly sure at what time the page came about, but I know once I saw that name, I kind of almost felt responsible, like about like just people reaching out to me, telling me like how brave I was for speaking out. And though I appreciated it, I was just like, it took me a really, really long time. And I know I'm not the only one who's feeling like this, and I'm not the only one who knows people. I just so happened to be Greek during my undergrad time, so I just felt like it was a personal responsibility for me to talk. And once I did make that first war cry, kind of snowballed.
Jackie, when you had the conversation, when you started revealing more details and supporting people by saying, because I believe you named someone who sexually assaulted or raped your friend, and
Yes.
then it snowballed. So can you talk
Yes.
about what happened after that? Because I know you received some blowback.
Yes, I did. My phone was off the chain that entire day. One of the first calls, actually being a member of that person's fraternity, calling me to confront me about the situation. Actually, no, it was that person, now that I remember it. He got my number through someone that I didn't even know, who, I don't know how they got my number, but it got passed to them. Me and this person were never friends, so they got my contact. And it was the first call about, well, you should give me the information of the person who's saying that I did this so that I can at least, explain myself. And I'm just like, we all know what you did. There were multiple people there. There's no need for you to terrorize this person anymore. Either you come forward and you deal with it, or this is, the consequence. And niggas was arrogant. So I got a couple of those calls throughout the day from various organizations and a few threats as well, mainly from friends of those people.
Deshawn, how did you experience this reckoning on Twitter?
So the crazy part about it is that I got it through a different light. And so the first page that I saw was the Detroit Rapist page. And so after seeing that, I seen an individual that was well known in the city that kind of got outed about his interaction with young women in high school. And also having weird interactions with him myself. And so once I saw that, that kind of had a ripple effect down to me seeing a young lady from the University of Michigan, I believe current or just graduated, because, I graduated some years ago. I started to get a hold of UMich Twitter, and then I saw the UMich page, I saw the Eastern page, I saw the Western page, I saw the Wayne State page, and I looked at each and every single page. But given I, attended the University of Michigan, that one really caught my attention. And then I also saw Jackie tweeting. And so once I saw Jackie tweeting and saw other individuals tweeting, I'm like, oh, this is what we're doing today, because I'm ready too, and so I received some calls from people as well, or text and stuff like that, like, what's going on, what's happening, what's happening on the timeline, because I'm always a person that will chime in on anything related to women, LGBTQ community, all of that. I'm an advocate. So I'm always like, oh, this is what we're talking about. Here I am. So yeah, let's talk about this. And so I got a wind of just both sides, like Detroit overall and then University of Michigan. So I was just like looking and chiming in on everything. So it was a big shawam. Like it was a lot happening that day, but yeah.
So this isn't the first time that a conversation like this has happened on Twitter. Why do you all think that people get outed on Twitter and this conversation continues to happen on Twitter? Because we know the response from men is, why don't you go to the police, right? Like Black men specifically don't trust the police, but they want Black women to trust the police to investigate them, right? That just doesn't make sense. But anyway, can you guys talk about why this conversation keeps happening?
Because of a lack of accountability, personally. I think the same conversation happens because there are people who are unable to take the accountability of causing harm within our community.
And that being said, each and every one of you have been a victim of sexual harassment, sexual assault, or rape. And that to me is unconscionable, but it is the reality for many women. And men often downplay the severity of it, the severity of the effects of it, and the widespreadness. Everyone's like, oh, it doesn't happen. I don't know anyone. Well, if you know so many victims, of rape and so many survivors, you also know rapists. So that's that. Deshawn, I want to start with you and talking about your personal experience with rape. Can you tell your story?
Yeah, so my experience happened my freshman year of college. Um, so I'm a first gen student. So this is like I had no, indication of like what to expect, what to really like, no guide on how to go about, college life, how to maneuver dealing with men or, et cetera. So there was an individual at the time that I met through work. I used to work in a dining hall that introduced himself to me, of course, with first meeting someone you never really grasp or know what they're really about or who they really are, especially when you're young. And I was, I think, 18 at the time. And then, just to fast forward on, the miscellaneous details. This incident happened on my birthday, where, I'm thinking that this individual simply wanted to just, come and offer me a gift or whatever, because this is what he told me, like, yeah, I have a gift for you, et cetera. And then, I allowed him into my space of where I was staying at the time, because at this point I'm thinking like, okay, well, not work with him, he's cool or whatever. Don't really know much else other than the conversations we've had, on a semi-continual basis. But and of course, one thing led to another, and I just recall that experience just making me so uncomfortable and not knowing what to do, because I've never been in that space where I didn't know how to say something, or that my uncomfortability didn't like show through. But within that, I didn't really have much time to think or gather what happened, because I had a final. As we all know, finals are always in December, and my birthday's in December. So I had a final in French that day. And I just couldn't, take time to really breathe. And it all came to a head once I got outside my professor's office, and I just couldn't hold it back. Like, I was literally having like a panic attack, and she's just like, what's going on? What's wrong? And so I just told her. So in that moment, she stopped what she was doing and was like, no, like, I'm about to take you to the hospital, like, whatever it is you want to do. And she consoled me the whole time. And to this day, I continually thank her. Like, I've emailed her, like, just thank you for being there for me, because you didn't have to. Like, you could have just kept doing your final exams with students and just pushed me to the side. But she stopped what she was doing. I remember calling a friend to come be there with me, and that whole experience was just, it was a lot. So of course, proud survivor though, just to be able to progress from that time and to be able to fully talk about it, because at one point I was never able to talk about it.
Yeah. And I know that your birthday, because of that, is a source of anxiety for you. We've had conversations. I remember you calling me on your birthday to talk about it. And I think it was like 2 years ago when we had that conversation. And it's such a painful experience. And I don't think that men are understanding the consequences of these actions, right? And this is not, I'm obviously not giving them any like leeway, but I mean that people in general don't see rape as a long lasting of consequences. They don't, like, it happens once for them, but you carry it with you.
Mm-hmm.
And especially because it's on your birthday.
Yeah.
Did you what was your experience like at the hospital? Did you have a good experience at the hospital?
The crazy thing about it is that I was so worried about backlash. I was so worried about, like, am I really going to be able to get help with this? Like, it was so much running through my mind. I'm like, how do I tell my parents? If I didn't tell my parents until 2 days later, because I really didn't know how to bring that to them. And especially being a first gen student, it's like they didn't really know how to be there for me. They didn't have a way to get to me. Like, my parents were, they were hurt. It's like, what can you do? And I just remember my dad making a status like, what can you do when you can't protect your daughters? Like what, so it was a lot. And it's hazy, but I just remember my friend being there like, the whole time. And at that point, when I was at the hospital, they said like they would have to call the police. And I'm like, yes, okay, thank you, you know, and they called the police. And I just remember having a conversation with the police in that moment and talking to a detective and everything. And it was what was like, I think 3 days just felt like a long process. It felt like forever. And I just recall the main comment that the detective made to me, which was a woman, basically told me like, you know, it doesn't really seem like, you know, you're really upset, or like, you know, she basically, my demeanor didn't give off something happened to me. And yeah, and I was just taken back, and I was just like, what, are you serious? Like, how am I supposed to look? You know, especially when a lot of people don't really understand that people that, you know, cause abuse or do things or harm you are people that you think you know, or people that you're close to, or what have you. So it's like, how I was supposed to look for somebody that I thought I was getting to know. And then the crazy part about it is once she updated me on certain things, she told me how old he was. And I'm thinking like, oh, he's in his like late 20s or so. Mind you, I'm 18, right? This man was 40. So that alone too was just like, you know, and so her asking me like, did you know this, or did you? And I'm just like, no, I was just getting to know this man, you know. So I really didn't know how to take that. But the effects of it really hit me the most, because I recall being in my dorm and somebody knocking on my door, and I instantly got scared. And it was my my dorm advisor, it was my resident advisor coming to check on me. But I was just like, I can't even stay here no more. Like I'm that afraid, you know, like, cause I don't know if this guy's trying to come back because I done made a report, or, you know, what happened. So it was a lot, you know.
First of all, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being willing to share, because I know these stories will help someone. Either they will come forward about their own situation, or it will help them process things that have happened to them for themselves. But I'm also very happy that you had that teacher that prioritized your health, safety, mental and emotional well-being over their job and your test, because that's not always something that
is rare.
You know, it's rare. Jackie, let's shift to you. I know all of you, so I already know these stories because we've had conversations as Lynn. But it makes me emotional hearing them still, you know, like, you know how I am. So yeah, Jackie, let's talk about your situation. Why don't you share your story for us?
Sorry. Whew. I keep forgetting this is like take 2 of this, and like every time I read, even though me and Deshawn have talked about it at length so many times, it always just breaks my heart to hear her story every time. So breathe back. So my story unfortunately started my freshman year as well. I was coerced into having sex with someone that I didn't want to have sex with. And I laugh a lot. Like anybody who knows me, like I'm a smiley, laughing like type of person, and I usually make a lot of like dark jokes to kind of cope with the things that I go through, just so I can like continue to be a happy-go-lucky person. Because the first time that I was victimized sexually, I was 3 years old, and it was by a family member, and that is unfortunately one of my first memories. So for me to like counteract not being like messed up as a person, I've always like joked about it. So I remember I was in a pageant, in a pageant for one of the fraternities that was on campus. I was the first freshman who had done it in a while. I think Deshawn actually was a part of the pageant with me, along with a few other really, really smart, beautiful, talented women. And I just gained a lot of attention within that organization doing it. I was like really charismatic. I was like down to go to like all the parties and kind of be like a social butterfly, because when I went to college, I'm also a first gen. All I wanted above anything was to be a part of one particular Greek organization. As stupid as it sounds now as a grown up, that was something that I was really, really focused on, and a lot of my happiness And sociability in college was contingent on it. So I hung out with the brother organization of mine pretty often. And I gained friends with them, and they gained my trust. And one night there was a particular party. It was right before Halloween. I think it was the weekend before Halloween. And I was with a couple of my friends. And I was with a couple of my friends. And I remember we were walking together, but at some point I got separated by the group. And I saw the guy there. He had been pursuing me for a while. He used to DM me a lot on Twitter, Instagram, telling me how pretty I was, want to take me out. And I just, I wasn't interested. I'm like, he's a senior, I'm a freshman. It just can't go really well or whatever. But we ended up drinking together, talking at the party. He was really smart, very charismatic. He was the leader of this organization as well as a few others on campus. So I was just like, like, this is a cool guy. He's like perfect. He was an engineer. He had super high GPA. He was from out of state. I thought, hit the jackpot. I was like 17 years old, and I had only ever had one partner in my entire life. And so when he asked me to take a walk with him, I obliged. When he asked me to continue to take a walk with him to his house, I said yes. When he asked me if I wanted food, I said yes. When he asked me if I wanted another drink, I didn't follow him to the kitchen to watch him make my drink or see what he put in it or anything like that. I just knew before the food got there, it got real hazy, and I was kind of in and out. And I remember he was just telling me how pretty I was. And I was just like, thanks, like, oh, he started kissing me. And I remember it feeling good for a second, and my mind just being like, no, like, you're not ready. And I remember fighting with myself because it's like, you're in college, you're free, you're an adult, this is like you. And I had already had so much, I realize now, pent up shame against my own sexuality for being victimized and sexualized so early on that for me, it was like, this would be like a take back of control, but it wasn't because I wasn't ready. And I remember saying, like, you know what, no, like, let's just go back to the party, because the party was around the corner at another house, at another frat house. And I was like, no, let's just go to the party, it's fine. He was just like, oh no, like, I just want to do this real quick. And he had asked to give me oral sex. And I remember just kind of like laying there and letting it happen and realizing he was on top of me afterwards. And I do not know why in my body I could not say no or tell him to stop or push me off. To which I blamed myself for the entire situation, because it's like, with the reinforcement of some people that I did share it with, unfortunately, it's like, you should have known better. Like, all the factors were there, all of the flags were there, and you allowed yourself to trust somebody who was going to take advantage of you. And you know for a fact that this person is going to get away with it. Like, they're going to get away with it. Because you're a freshman and you messed with somebody who was a senior, and you're grown and you wanted to be a part of this organization. And I got that. I remember when I told my friends, they were just like, well, isn't this the guy that you let take you on a date? Like, didn't you really like him? Like, if you like him, like, it's fine. These were my roommates who I lived with. The ones I came with who left me. And I remember a lot of drama being surrounded by that relationship. And one thing that I always reflect on that kind of haunts and disgusts me slightly is me allowing myself to be in a relationship with him, because I felt like I felt like it was my fault. Like, I felt like I was carrying that, and I pretty much, to save face, you're right, this did happen. We did agree that this happened. So we're together now. And it was a very dysfunctional, disrespectful relationship afterwards.
So many survivors have that shame and that guilt. And guess what? That is what these perpetrators count on, is the shame and the guilt. Because if you have the shame and the guilt, they don't have to carry it, right? Like, they put it on you. It's a transference of that. And it is fucked up. And Jackie, I'm so sorry. First of all, I'm sorry to all of you that you had to experience this. And I'm also sorry that people around you further victimize you and further harmed you outside of these experiences. Yeah, it's just, how have you, well, Bree, let's go to you first, to talk about your story.
Okay. Oh boy. So we have a few reoccurring themes here. I was also a freshman in college,
Mhm.
also a first generation college student. So,
Shout out to the first gens.
I immediately graduated high school and was ready to go. I was a part of the Summer Bridge program. So the Summer Bridge program is really cool when you're 18 and you're in it.
Mhm.
And the concept of it is really cool because it's summer classes and you pretty much go to a college campus in the middle of summer where there's not really as many people on campus and the parties are outside and there's all these different things happening. And so I went into the fall school year. Can I cuss?
Yes, you can.
I thought I was the shit freshman year. I'm like, I'm grown. I have a late birthday, so I was still 17 when the fall semester started. So I was kind of like, we in this hole. I'm ready to dance. I'm ready to go to all the parties because I already
She
know.
was.
Like I was in Bridge, so I know where all the parties are at already. I know where everything is, and I was feeling myself. And I was freshly single, so I was like, let's go. I had 2 boyfriends in high school, so didn't know what it was like to be single and away from home. So you can imagine I was ready to turn up. And freshman year, there was someone who pursued me a couple times, and I actually said no a few times. And for whatever reason, I ran into this person one day walking down South U, I believe. I was by East Quad, and this person was pressing me, "Can I get your number?" Da, da, da. And I was like, all right, cool, fine. Like, whatever. I'm single. Who cares? I can do what I want. Like, it's college. Cool, right? We were texting a little bit. Things were cool. Things were fine. We went home together one night after a party. Things were cool. I actually really liked him. I started to really like him. We started spending a lot of time together, and he was a senior. He was an upperclassman. So there was that kind of feeling in the back of my head, like they literally tell you don't be that freshman that falls in love with a senior, and here I am being goofy. But he was talking some good shit in my ear, and I really was believing him. Like I genuinely was like, I like him, so it's fine. But he was a hoe and he was a liar and he was very, very manipulative, and he definitely lied to me to make the situation seem like it was one way when it was absolutely not. And he was very much still having sex with multiple other people, unprotected, might I add, and putting my health at risk, putting everyone's health at risk, linking up with women off Backpage, like legit just out here running up in anybody. Okay. And I found out one night after a party, he and I went back to his place, and I was 18. I was not the smartest at the time. We had actually spent the night arguing because I caught him texting his ex. Correction, not his ex. It was the other woman he was fucking. And, when you're drunk, he kind of started, don't be mad, don't be mad, don't be mad. And things kind of started happening. And it sucks because I genuinely didn't even realize this was sexual assault until this day happened. And I had to take, or maybe even just this week, because I had to really think about it. I didn't think it counted. I didn't think my situation would fall under the category. It wouldn't be accepted maybe by some higher up sexual assault council that deems things rape and not rape. And I didn't think that I would qualify. So it really didn't even register that this happened to me and that it counted. So I told everyone, the next day, I told my friends, me and this guy aren't talking anymore. I found out he was doing some shady shit. I didn't even tell them that I was assaulted because it didn't click that I was. We started having sex and it was cool until it wasn't. And it became really painful and violent. And I told him to stop and he did not. And he just continued until he was finished and went to sleep. And I just remember crying. I spent half of that time crying because it wasn't sex anymore. And I just wanted him to stop. And after that, I just kind of rolled over and went to sleep. And I woke up the next day, and this person stayed in Zaragoza. So one of my good friends stayed in East Quad, right next door, walking distance, 2-3 minute walk, maybe max. And the next morning, I ran to E-Squad, and I texted Jackie, and I texted one or two
Ooh, I'm
other
sorry.
friends.
I remember this day.
Oh man, this morning was really hard. We sat in E-Squad together and had breakfast, and I told them exactly what happened. I told them what I found out about him. I told them a lot of what happened. And the sad part is that this story doesn't even stop there. Like, I wish I could say, like, and that was it, and I moved on with my life, and
Right.
he moved on was hit with his life, and it was fine. Like, again, realizing that that was an assault, like, last month. And this situation happened, what, like 6 years ago? Didn't even realize it counted. And about 2 weeks later or so, I was pretty much verbally assaulted. I was verbally attacked on Twitter by a large demographic of Black UMich. They all ganged up on me. They were shaming me. No one knew he had assaulted me. They all thought that I was just the dumb bitch that fell in love with the guy who's known for having hoes and was a known sleaze, which, again, didn't know because 18, freshman, went to school in Southfield. I didn't go to Cass like the rest of y'all. I don't know this man. Like, I didn't go to Renaissance like the rest of you motherfuckers. Okay? I was in Southfield.
Neither did Deshaun.
And they were like, bitch,
Yeah,
you
what's
should have
Northwest?
known. Like, they were coming at me so crazy. And the whole time, I'm just like,
Yeah.
this man traumatized me. And y'all are laughing at me.
Making it a joke.
Me.
Exactly.
And
The
the worst,
whole joke.
that
Brianna, I would like to assure you, first of all, that that was a rape. And I think that people always talk about what classifies as rape and what women could do differently. But here's the thing. Your partner has an obligation to listen to your likes and dislikes about your body. I don't care if you're mid-thrust. If you say no, that's hurting me, and he is not changing his behavior, and you keep saying no, that is rape. And I'm so happy we're having this conversation. And I know that this is not a therapy session. I know that we are taking a chance by having we are having a conversation that we've had before just on camera, right? So we're really comfortable with each other, and you're sharing your stories, and I want to make sure that you guys have the platform to do that, because this is an important issue for women internationally. And this is an important issue for Black women specifically, especially in the time of Me Too, where Black women are often erased, especially in the time of Black Lives Matter, where Black women are very much erased, murdered, and killed by the same people that they're protesting next to. They're often silenced and told to prioritize their race over their gender and the livelihood of the men that are doing this to them over themselves. And I don't like that. And Black women will always be at the center, and LGBT people will always be at the center of anything that I do. So I want to make sure that in this venture, these conversations that we're having, some conversations are hard. And this is a hard one.
it is.
And thank you guys so much for sharing. These stories are equally as angering as they are heartbreaking. And I want to ask you guys, have any of you gotten therapy or counseling or anything for these situations?
I actually,
Deshaun, you can turn on your light.
I actually, I was very resistant to therapy in college. I'm not gonna lie. CAPS was a very difficult resource to utilize. It was a resource, but it was a very difficult one as far as consistency of therapists that were available. So it wasn't actually until I graduated college and I pursued working in a particular industry where I realized that I had some issues that I needed to sort out, pretty much, because I was at work having like flashbacks pretty much when things happen for some crazy reason. So I started there 2 years ago, actually.
Deshaun?
So I remember going to CAPS because I remember I just took the rest of the semester off. I didn't go back. But I went once, and I don't know. It didn't really it didn't really help me. And then I think that's a whole nother conversation as far as like, you know, the extremes of like how valuable certain people are to like making sure people are getting the right amount of help. But from that time, I have not, and that is something I have wrestled with even to this day, with trying to figure out how do I go about doing that, because I tend to just lean on my friends, like calling you, like, okay, I can talk to this person. So I think I've sought out people in my life as that refuge. But even trying to maneuver now, because I know that has definitely played into how I deal with men. It plays a huge part of, you know, everybody knows I'm a part of the Men Ain't Shit, you know, brigade. Everybody knows that.
I think we all here
know,
are.
We are, but it definitely plays a huge part into my trust, and how I date. If I choose to date, like I've been single for about 6-7 years now. So yeah, so I'm still trying to work on maneuvering how to even go into that space to like get therapy.
Bree, I know that you said that your revelation was pretty new, because you were taught or you figured that it didn't matter or count. Do you want to seek therapy or counseling, or do you feel like you need to help you process that?
Have already. I just recently started.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Session on Monday, because a lot of the backlash from that relationship with that person, unfortunately, no one ever wants to be sexually assaulted by a popular guy, because the reaction that the general public will have will most likely not be positive. And unfortunately, I was assaulted by someone who was popular and in a fraternity and went to a popular Detroit high school, so everyone knows him, and he had popular friends, and everyone pretty much kind of unleashed and unloaded all of their respect and support behind him. And so after that situation happened, I really think I didn't seek therapy. I actually didn't even waste my time with CAPS, which is I regret. I regret not even just giving it a chance. But I had heard so many negative things about CAPS that I'm like, waste my time for what? Like, I mean, let's be real here. Maybe someone else in the future can help me, but CAPS specifically right now, probably not. And I do think that situation my freshman year, the backlash from it, everything that happened on Twitter, the skit that happened after that, being threatened with revenge porn, like right in the midst of all of it by someone else that I dealt with for like a week and didn't want to talk to anymore, who decided that they wanted to take revenge out on me. Now, all of that combined, I really feel like flipped a switch in me internally. If you ask Jackie, I feel like I was so much more outgoing. Freshman year, I wanted friends. I wanted to go talk. I wanted to go to parties. I wanted to hang out with people. I wanted to leave my house. And I feel like after that happened, I stopped going out as much. I didn't really enjoy myself. Like everyone talks about cantina. I have like 2 cantina memories because I didn't go, because I didn't feel welcome. And, you know, when people post like throwback tailgate pictures, I'm in none of them. And it's like a regret that I have. I wish I could go back and like redo it, because I'm like, I didn't really get like the social college experience. So I'm seeking therapy now because I'm like, my asocial tendencies that I feel like I developed, I think stem from that situation. And it sucks because now I'm like, damn, like I would like to go to a tailgate now and take tons of drunk selfies and.
But you didn't ask for that, so don't even. And you were young and you didn't know how to process it. We see people talk a lot on Twitter and in real life about, well, Twitter is real life, but you know what I mean, offline, about how accusation can ruin a man's life, how these things can ruin a man's life. And they always talk about redemption. Is there redemption for a rapist or a sexual assaulter? And what does that redemption look like to you? And should we even be centering their redemption in the pain of survivors? Jackie?
No. To answer that latter question, no. And that was one of the most frustrating things I saw, because no matter what we are talking about, the severity of the issue, if it has anything to do with Black women and the pain and plight of Black women, Black men end up getting centered. And then you have to fight with these same people, men and women, who center these situations, whether it's about their redemption or if it's about a false accusation or if it's about, oh, I didn't know and you should reach out to me, whether it's about that or not, the attention always gets taken off, which of course is frustrating because when you say that, you already got people thinking that you're doing it for attention and you're not doing it for any type of, veneration of what you went through or whatever. So just to say that, no. But then also, as far as redemption goes, I am struggling with how I feel about that. But I had a conversation with someone who was also involved with the whole Twitter thing. A close friend of mine who had shared her story, and I had shared it on Twitter with her permission. She told me about Kobe Bryant and that whole situation that had happened. And it's one of my favorite stories of redemption because he actually did what y'all refused to do. He took accountability. He admitted to the situation. And then he dedicated his entire life funding, donating, educating himself, his daughters, the people around him. It showed in his work and his legacy. And I remember the reason that I even went into it is because somebody, I think, had tweeted the day that he died, like, I wonder how the victim feels or whatever. And I too may wonder how the victim feels to know, or the survivor, excuse me, because not to insult her, the survivor feels about seeing someone who did victimize her now pass on. Because yes, right, we all love him and we forgave him and everything, but we don't know how she's feeling. And
well, that's a difference between.
There's a caveat.
It's a difference between personal redemption and societal
right,
redemption. Because right, because when you're a public person, society can turn their back on you, and it's like, did you do enough? Like the victim, the survivor, can go to her grave not forgiving you, right? Like she has no obligation to do that. But as far as society, it is different. And Jackie, I want to acknowledge something that you said before about false accusations and Black men and give historical context. Black women do not falsely accuse Black men of rape. That is something that white women do. And that is a racist thing that is based on racism. So when Black people center false allegations, when Black women are talking about their rape and their sexual assault, it is so harmful. Because if no one is protecting or uplifting Black women, and they're always using white women's racism to counterpunch it, when are y'all gonna be free? Who is going to help? So I just want to acknowledge that and provide historical context for people. It's not Black women that are falsely accusing Black men of rape. Black women are the victims of rape, period. So Brianna, sorry, I just had to, because that always, you know when I see
you
it,
said like, it.
We didn't know
Can I also just real quick also point out that there are a whole bunch of unread like rape kits and stuff in all these different precincts that have Black women's name on it. Even the reporting and how people deal with it is rooted in systemic racism. So
absolutely. Deshaun, for you, I mean, honestly, I don't even really want to talk about redemption because I really kind of don't care. But I think I wanted to have a holistic conversation and give you guys the opportunity to share how you feel about these things. How do you feel, Deshaun? Your face tell me, but.
Because honestly, it's fuck these niggas. Excuse me.
Brianna?
The thing is, I've had a good number of conversations with plenty of men. I actually did a live with a gentleman that we talked about like the sex effects on women. It was actually a really good conversation. He's definitely a guy that is looking to listen, understand, and try to gauge all of this and what's going on. And he had the same question as far as redemption, or how do we maneuver these people that are in our circles? Do we just ostracize them, or do we just push them out? All of this. And so my question to that, and the way I feel is, how attached are we to these people that are temporary, that we just met, or, that was in a frat with us, or, like, how important are those people to us compared to the person that was victimized? So, that's a question I have for people that have this hold on individuals that are closely knitted to them that have been accused of these things. Like, what's the hold on you, trying to give this person the benefit of the doubt compared to the person that was, violated? Because me as a person, and like I said, I'm still dealing with this, I can sit here and say, is if I see you with the person that violated me, that I take to that. Because why are you,
Absolutely.
with an individual that has caused me trauma, that has caused me to relive. And the thing is, within a moment of you and your friendship and you knowing just 80% of this person, because you don't know what they do, behind closed doors, I have to continually relive that every birthday. So within that moment where you're just trying to be empathetic, like, oh, well, I understand, but the but is like, no, I have to live this. So why are we so headstrong on the redemption part? And not to say that some things aren't redeemable, because the Kobe Bryant situation is definitely, a perfect example to that. And so with the levels of it is just hard for me, because it's like, well, in what space are men trying to step up to do this? Because is it only because now people are outing you? Because at what point did you now decide after all this time is the perfect time to apologize? Because
Right.
this happened, way beforehand. So now, since somebody's putting a voice to this or putting your name out there, now I need to come out. Now I need to, be performative online to show that I'm
Right.
being an advocate. So it's a thin line for me. I believe some situations are redeemable, but then I also think about the people that are affected. And me, that was someone that was violated, I'm on that side where it's like, I don't really care.
Yeah, and I think that there's a little wiggle room here, because we don't have, like all of you guys were freshmen, right? And we don't have conversations with teenagers about consent, right? So there are some situations that even I have been in where, yes, someone may have violated me, or a situation may have felt not right, but I can understand, based on the understanding of consent, that it was just a blurring of lines. And also, with a lot of people think you're playing hard to get, because that's a narrative that's spun around, right? So if you're a predator, you're a predator to me. This is just, I'm not speaking for anyone, I'm just talking about myself. If you're a predator, you're a predator. Like, I don't see any redemption for Bill Cosby, for Harvey Weinstein, for Jeffrey Epstein, for Russell Simmons. Fuck all of this, because you have consistently preyed on women.
Consistently.
Consistently,
it was the what was it what was the little Indian guy who that expose came out where
yes,
the comedian, what's his name?
oh,
I know
it's
who you're
gonna
talking about, but I forget his name.
Yeah.
give me 2 seconds.
It's not important, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So that one made me uncomfortable, and yes, Aziz Ansari. That situation, it made me uncomfortable. He violated her, and I was like, okay, so now this one, does it rise to? Is he irredeemable? Like, you know what I mean? Like, those kinds of things, because it's a spectrum, right? And I think we have to have that conversation too. It's a spectrum of things, and it's like, if we have, like, if you guys if your school had done talks about consent and about what rape is and about what sexual assault is, Bree, you specifically would have known in your body what happened to you was what it was, right? So can you guys speak to what you think the University of Michigan specifically, but colleges in general, could and should do differently to protect you and educate you on sexual things?
I think starting with immediately addressing it when new students come on campus and making it something that, okay, I took the little relationship remix, I'm done hearing about consent, for the next 4 years. Like a lot of the curriculum that I experienced and that Jackie and I experienced in Bridge together, and anything that we may have done freshman year that was based around consent and sexual health that was put in our faces and we were forced to listen and forced to engage stopped after fall semester. And then I noticed after fall semester, the narrative changes to just go to SAPAC, just go to SAPAC, yay, just go to SAPAC, just go to SAPAC. Like, okay, but like these need to be continuous conversations. The same way like engineers need to be taking humanities classes, because a lot of engineers and business students and students that will never have to sit in a women's studies, African American studies, sociology, or any type of course along those lines go 4 years without ever learning about like racism and power dynamics. It is the exact same way plenty of people slide through those 4 years and never really learn the definition of consent and never really learn the definition of what it means to sexually assault someone and the severity of either an emphatic yes or nothing else.
Right.
And after freshman year, it just kind of turns into, oh yeah, SAPAC has meetings on these days. Their office is here. Go get some knowledge if you want it, I guess. But like, and I mean, I think I was fortunate because I was in the Black Student Union. So we collaborated with SAPAC through our members who were on those boards and had those connections. So I was able to maintain hearing the information constantly.
For me, and I just have to make this quick comment as somebody who is both was a part of the Greek community and also like played a hand in like exposing about 95% of the very prominent Greek members on campus. And I don't want to make it exclusive to just Greek people or whatever. I know it was heavily focused with those particular people until people on the page started exposing, you know, like just regular folks who was just out here victimizing people. But it was so heavily focused on that. And I think even when Deshaun, Bree, and I were in high school, we were probably hearing all of the horror stories about all of these crazy white frat houses that be date raping girls and putting Mickeys in the drinks and, you know, all these crazy things that happen after party. I know I was hearing all the stories about U of M and about all the frat houses with all these things. So I didn't even conceptualize that it could happen within my own community, with my own people, within our own organizations that were created for us, by us. So for me, it was the infiltration of these same people being leaders and organizers within other organizations. Like the guy who victimized me was also the president of the National Society of Black Engineers. There was people who were the president of their fraternities and then the presidents of the Black Student Unions or NAACP. So for me, the better question, not even the better question, but just figuring out how to even eradicate these members, period, because these same people come back every homecoming to scope out these new girls. These same men come out and they're predators. They prey and they're predators. So it's like, how do we go about, like, I thought the exposure would be one of a really, really big step, but then I realized there's going to be certain people who are still going to participate and interact with these people no matter what. So do they also become shunned? Like every time there's girls that I unfollow because they're still with their boyfriends who were on the page multiple times. So it's like, how can we even ban these people from these? I want to go to homecoming just so I can see who's there, who got the nerve to like show up or whatever. But then it's also like, okay, they hear if this guy next to me who's supposed to be real ain't go jump on him and beat him up, what the hell am I supposed to do? I don't expect the University of Michigan to protect us, especially not the Black girls, but I certainly don't expect them to create an environment in which things like that don't happen, because they don't even, I worked in SAPAC. I know the percentage rate of how many of them kids had damn chlamydia and gonorrhea on that campus. They weren't even doing a good job of providing people tests and making sure that they were able to have that type of access. So I don't expect them to try to like move around and make special efforts to keep people safe. And it's an institution thing. I think from doing also research at the response of sexual assault and the prevention, especially for University of Michigan. University of Michigan has one of the highest rates of unreported sexual assault cases. I think they were next to Boston University and Harvard University.
I mean, and
like it's
you guys
stupid.
had
it's like y'all just don't care.
The university, the state of Michigan, the University State, or University State, the State University of Michigan, where Larry Nassar was the doctor who got convicted for being
Michigan State. Yes.
Michigan State. Sorry, I could not.
That was so cute. University State.
Yeah.
University.
It's so many of these institutions are protecting, directly or indirectly, protecting these abusers, and that is one of the reasons to pivot back to what we were saying earlier. That's one of the reasons why Twitter is a place, social media is a place for you guys to use your power that you have, which is your social media account, to expose these people who are doing these horrendous things. I want to thank you guys so much for having this conversation with me. I know that it was hard for all of us. We've had this conversation several times before, and I hope that someone, at least someone, takes something from this conversation, whether it is a girl, Bree, your story is heartbreaking, but also not unique. I hope that some girl listens and understands that thing that happened to her that she can't forget, it wasn't her fault, that was a rape. You understand what I'm saying? Like, there's so many of those girls out there. And Jackie and Deshawn, thank you so much for being so open about the situation that you have gone through and your survival. It is my hope that at some point, Black men, cis-het Black men, will be accountable for their crimes against Black women. This is not something that is new. Even within the Black Panther movement, there were women that were put down, sexually abused by their male counterparts. We just seen this Army situation with the girl, I can't, off the top of my head, the girl that was murdered. We see Black trans women get murdered all the time. And we see other Black women excusing and rationalizing the behavior of Black men. We call them enablers, but the Egyptian feminist Mona Elthaway, she calls them foot soldiers of the patriarchy. Because if you're not actively dismantling the patriarchy, you are a part of it. You're a foot soldier for the patriarchy. And that, to me, is exactly, any time that I see a Black woman saying, oh, well, they wanted it, she knew what she was doing, it's like, girl, I know that we're indoctrinated under the same system.
Look, Daddy,
But your
Ginger
sister,
traitor.
Ginger traitor.
We always yell it on the TV. Ginger traitor. That's exactly what it is. You are a footstool. Ooh.
Thank you so much, ladies. I love you all.
I love you.
For having us.
Sire, we love you.
We did it.
We did it.
So good.